Welcome to today's screencast on settlement patterns and survey methods, part of our exploration of agricultural geography and AP Human Geography. In this screencast, I'll uncover how human settlements and land use are organized, as well as the techniques used to divide and measure land. These patterns and methods not only reflect cultural and historical influences, but also have significant implications for how societies interact with the land and manage resources. By the end of this screencast, you'll have a deeper understanding of the spatial organization of settlements and how survey methods influence agriculture, land ownership, and development. Let's take a look at the specific objective from AP Human Geography CED. Identify different rural settlement patterns and methods of surveying rural settlements. Let's start with rural settlement patterns. These patterns describe how people organize their homes, farms, and communities in agricultural areas, and they're shaped by significant, specific agricultural practices, environmental conditions, and cultural traditions. There are three main types: clustered, dispersed, and linear. Now let's move on to survey methods. The ways land is divided and measured for ownership and use. These methods often reflect historical and cultural influences and have lasting impacts on rural landscapes. They include meets and bounds, township and range, and long lot survey. Understanding these settlement patterns and survey methods helps us connect historical land use practices to the landscapes we see today. These patterns not only reflect agricultural needs, but also the culture and economic systems that shaped them. When it comes to rural land use, defining the boundaries of land ownership is essential for organizing land and establishing legal property lines. Different survey methods have been used throughout history, each influenced by the local geography, culture, and the needs of the people. One of the earliest and most significant rural survey methods is meets and bounds. Meets and bounds originated in Great Britain and was brought over to North America during the colonial period. This system uses natural landmarks and physical features like rivers, trees, mountain ranges to define boundaries. For example, a plot of land might be described as extending from the oak tree at the riverbank to the large rock on the hill. These features served as clear, visible markers that could be used by early settlers to establish property lines. The primary result of this system is that the land plots are often irregularly shaped. This contrasts with more modern systems where land is divided into straight lines or grids. While meets and bounds were effective in areas where natural features were prominent and easily identifiable, they often led to confusion and disputes over property lines due to the lack of precision and the influence of changing landmarks over time. Despite these challenges, the method played a foundational role in early land surveys and is still seen in some areas today. Another survey method historically used for managing rural land and establishing clear legal lines is the long lot system, which has its roots in France and Spain and was later brought to North America during European colonization. This method is characterized by long, narrow strips of land that extend from a central resource, such as a river, lake, or coastline. The primary goal of the long lot system was to ensure that every landowner had equal access to essential resources, particularly water and fertile soil. By arranging land in long, narrow strips, each property owner could have access to the same natural resources, which were critical for farming and transportation. This system also facilitated easier access to waterways, allowing landowners to transport goods and crops, which was especially important before the development of roads and highways. The long lot system is still visible today in regions that were influenced by French and Spanish colonial practices, such as parts of Louisiana in the United States and Quebec in Canada. This method reflects how physical geography, particularly the presence of rivers and lakes, shapes the way the land is divided and used. By creating a direct connection between people and the resources they need, the long lot system helped to establish an organized, equitable distribution of land for agricultural and transportation purposes. One of the most influential methods for defining land ownership boundaries in the United States is the township and range system. Pioneered by Thomas Jefferson in the late 18th century, this method was designed to create a uniform and organized way of surveying and dividing land, especially as the country expanded westward. The goal was to provide a systematic approach to land ownership, making it easier to track land sales and purchases and to ensure consistent land distribution. The township and range system divides land into rectangular sections using a grid-like pattern. Each township is a square, measuring 6 miles by 6 miles, or 36 square miles. Within each township, the land is then further divided into sections, each measuring 1 mile by 1 mile, which is equivalent to 640 acres. This grid system allowed for precise and organized land division, making it easier to manage large tracts of land over time. The system's regularity also helped the government keep track of land sales and purchases. By using a standardized method, it was simpler to ensure that landowners could identify the boundaries of their property and easily buy, sell, or trade land within the grid. This system is still used in many parts of the U.S. today, particularly in rural areas, and has had a lasting impact on how land is managed and distributed. The township and range system remains a key part of land surveying in many regions of the United States today. Rural settlement patterns describe how people organize their homes and farms within a region, and they can be classified into different types based on how land is utilized and how communities are structured. One of the primary patterns is the clustered settlement pattern, which has its roots in European history and continues to be seen in rural areas today. In clustered settlements, homes and buildings are located in close proximity to each other. This pattern was historically common in Europe, where rural residents lived in villages or small communities, often with farmland and pastures surrounding the settlement. The compact arrangement of homes in a cluster made it easier for people to share resources and services. For example, there might be shared wells, communal spaces, or a central area where residents gathered for markets or social events. A key characteristic of clustered settlements is that residents usually had to walk to their farmland, as the agricultural land was typically located a short distance away. This pattern fostered a sense of community, with neighbors helping one another in agricultural tasks and sharing tools, labor, and other resources. The metes and bounds survey method was often used to define these clustered rural settlements. In this system, natural landmarks were used to establish property boundaries. Since the plots of land were irregular in shape and adjusted to the natural landscape, they helped create these compact clustered settlements seen in many parts of early Europe and later in North America. Rural settlement patterns can also be classified as dispersed, which is quite different from clustered settlements. In dispersed settlements, homes and farms are spread out over a large area rather than being grouped together. This pattern is most commonly seen in areas where land is abundant and there is little need for community clustering. One significant historical example of dispersed settlements in the United States comes from the government's promotion of westward expansion during the 19th century. The U.S. government encouraged settlers to move west by offering land, usually 160 acres at a time, through the Homestead Act of 1862. The idea was that settlers would claim the land and farm it, helping to establish a permanent agricultural presence in the Western territories. This system led to a pattern where farmers and their homes were widely scattered across the landscape, with large stretches of farmland between them. The dispersed settlement pattern reflects the values of individualism and the ownership of land. In contrast to more communal forms of settlement, dispersed farmers were more likely to live and work independently, with minimal interaction with neighbors. This type of settlement also emphasized personal responsibility for managing large tracts of land and resources. The township and range survey method played a significant role in shaping these dispersed settlements. Using a grid-like system, the government divided this land into 6-mile by 6-mile townships and then further subdivided them into smaller sections. This method made it easier to distribute large amounts of land over wide areas, contributing to the dispersed pattern of settlement seen in many parts of the western United States. Another common rural settlement pattern is the linear settlement, where homes and farms are arranged along a line rather than being clustered in a specific area or dispersed across a large landmass. This pattern is often associated with transportation routes or natural physical features like rivers, coastlines, or mountain ranges. Linear settlements can be found where people have historically relied on transportation for trade, travel, or access to resources. In a linear settlement, homes, businesses, and agricultural land are typically positioned along roads, railways, or waterways that provide easy access to goods, services, and other communities. For example, a settlement might develop along a river or coastal area to take advantage of the water for transportation or fishing, or along a major road or railway to support trade or travel. This linear arrangement allows for easy movement and interaction between the people living along the route, creating a unique pattern of settlement that follows the flow of traffic or natural geography. The long lot survey method, which was used in areas settled by the French and Spanish in North America, is closely linked to linear settlements. In this system, land is divided into long, narrow strips that extend from a river or lake, ensuring that every landowner has access to the water for transportation, irrigation, or other resources. This method of land division helped create linear settlement pattern where homes and farms were distributed along a waterway or other key feature, following the natural flow of the land. Understanding rural settlement patterns and survey methods is crucial because they directly shape the cultural landscape, the physical imprint of human activity on the environment. These patterns determine not only where people live, but also how they interact with the land and resources around them. By studying these patterns, geographers can gain insights into a region's history, economy, and society. In other words, the why of where helps explain why settlements are located in certain areas and how they evolve over time. Rural settlement patterns are a reflection of both environmental factors and cultural factors, as values, technological advancements, and historical processes. For example, clustered settlements often arise in areas with scarce land or harsh environmental conditions, where sharing resources and living in close proximity offers advantages. On the other hand, dispersed settlements tend to form in areas where land is abundant, and the values of individualism and land ownership play a significant role in shaping the settlement's design. Survey methods also play a crucial role in shaping the cultural landscape and influencing the way land is utilized. For example, meets and bounds, township and range, and long lot survey methods are not just technical processes, they're deeply connected to the history and cultural practices of the regions where they were used. These methods reflect the values, beliefs, and economic systems of the societies that developed them. The sequent occupancy concept refers to how different cultures or societies have influenced and modified the landscape over time. A piece of land may have been surveyed and settled using one method, and later other groups might come in and change that system. Each change in settlement pattern or land use method leaves its mark on the cultural landscape, creating a complex and layered history of human settlement. The study of rural settlement patterns and survey methods is significant because it helps us understand these historical, cultural, and environmental factors that have shaped regions around the world. These patterns are not just random. They reflect the values, technologies, and historical processes that influence where people settle and how they organize their community. Understanding this why of where provides insight into the lasting impact of human activity on the cultural landscape and the continuous process of sequent occupancy.